I'm hoping you remember the character Uncle Fester from the 60s TV show The Addams Family. Uncle Fester was the short, enthusiastic, bald guy who would sometimes put a light bulb in his mouth and it would glow. His name, Uncle Fester, was really intriguing to me and always stood out. You see, fester is defined as a wound that starts to turn gross over time. It begins to rot. But emotions can also fester. When feelings become worse and more intense, especially through long term neglect or indifference, they are festering. Obviously, they say it's bad to have this emotion, as over time it can consume you, and that's not healthy. So you need to find a way to detox and seek an inner peace. And one way to achieve this, a holistic approach to solving one woman's festering feelings, was to contact us here at TrustDALE Investigates.
I think they don't like me. I don't know.
On today's show, we are going to learn what caused Mary Lawson's frustrations to fester. I'm Dale Cardwell, and this is our TrustDALE Investigates podcast we call This Could Happen to You, where our TrustDALE team puts the focus on stories that have impacted people just like you and me. Mary Lawson is a single woman and she works full-time. She's also a senior citizen. The neighborhood she lives in includes modest homes like hers. The yards are relatively small, with about 15 feet of grass between the front steps and the street. Everyone's grass is neatly cut, and the bushes throughout the neighborhood are precisely squared off, as if a retired military barber has been down the street ensuring each trimming was done properly. But Mary's yard stands out. Her yard doesn't look like the others. For most of the summer, her yard wasn't as tidy as her neighbors, and with each passing month, her home's property really began to differentiate and deviate from the manicured postage stamp lots around her. Mary's grass was getting taller and thicker by the month. The sidewalk in front of her house began to have grass creeping over the edges, and all her shrubs looked neglected, with sprouts of twigs poking out of their formerly straight lines, looking as if they were misbehaving. The unkempt yard was growing worse with time. As the months of the yard's festering condition grew, so too did Mary's emotions. They were both beginning to rot with anger and intensity. What was going on? In America, approximately 20% of us live under the rules of a homeowners association or a community association, and a vast majority of new homes are part of what they call HOAs. That's where a private organization has created rules for those that live within the boundaries of a neighborhood or a condominium. These rules can cover anything and everything, from the color paint you have on your house to the weight of a dog that lives with you. And these homeowner associations, again, we'll call them by their abbreviation, HOAs, usually have superseding precedence over local laws. That means an HOA can be more powerful than a local government. The leaders of HOAs are your neighbors, for better or worse, though many are managed by companies hired to do the logistics. There's a lot of merit to living in a property controlled by an HOA. They are designed to keep the property values for everyone up to a standard. They can have strict rules, such that if someone doesn't follow them, they can be forced to pay large monetary fines or even kicked out of their property. When a city or a county doesn't have laws about leaving a dilapidated car sitting up on cinder blocks in a front yard, you can bet that an HOA does have a regulation preventing it, and often an HOA is more likely to enforce its rules. But we often hear in the news about an HOA rule that just seems cruel, like one that prevents a homeowner from building a treehouse for their kids or forbidding you from putting your shirts on a clothesline to dry. So now that we've chatted about HOAs, let's return to Mary Lawson. She lives in a house that is part of an HOA. She actually was pleased that they would ensure everyone's home would be maintained, and her HOA actually is responsible for doing the yard work. That was great news to Mary, as she's not nimble enough to do it these days herself. Note that HOAs usually have required fees, and it's mandatory.
Yes, sir. I paid $153 every month. It's supposed to be the grass, the shrubs, the edging, the blowing, front and back.
Mary showed me her check stubs and copies of payments she's been making to her HOA.
Mary, do you pay your bill?
I do every month, either ahead of time or on time.
And with Mary making her payments to the HOA, they should be taking care of Mary's yard. That's the deal. But her yard isn't getting the TLC it's supposed to. She says she tried to figure out why.
I've called them so many times and they will not do anything. They do not return calls. I don't know what's wrong with this association. 99.9% of the time it's somebody voice call. Once in a while I called and talked to someone, say, please, we'll return your call tomorrow. We'll let them know. And no one ever calls back.
It's making Mary angry. For 3 months, she's watched her yard become shabby while her neighbors remain chic.
I just want my yard to look pretty like everybody else's. I want everything done like it's supposed to be done.
When TrustDALE Investigates returns, we cut to the chase and find out why the HOA isn't cutting it.
Cars are so important to our lives. Don't take the chance of your vehicle breaking down. When it comes to oil changes and preventive maintenance, you can trust Haviland Express Lube. Haviland Express Lube achieves that goal by getting you in and out quicker than the competition and delivering the best value every time. Plus, you're double protected by the TrustDALE Make It Right guarantee. Service you need from the people you trust at Haviland Express Lube.
Welcome back to TrustDALE Investigates podcast we call This Could Happen to You. Here's more of our story. When your emotions fester, it can take a toll on your body. Stress hormones stay elevated for too long, and it can actually weaken your immune system. There are ways to cope with this, like medication, but if you can do things naturally, that's a lot better. I have an employee who recently started doing a form of meditative yoga. I think to partly release and rid herself of these harmful inner feelings, but I hope it's not work-related. But she says just after one session of this type of yoga, she felt true improvement in clearing her mind and body. We need to find a solution for Mary Lawson. She was at her wit's end. Her HOA wasn't taking care of her yard, and she says they didn't even tell her a reason for ignoring her.
I look around your neighborhood, everybody has immaculate lawns, but you.
I guess they don't like senior citizens. I think they don't like me. I don't know. I just want my yard to look pretty like everybody else's. I want everything done like it's supposed to be done.
This wasn't making any sense. So I contacted the property management firm to find out why it wasn't getting done. Here's my phone conversation with a representative.
The items in question that Ms. Lawson is referring to is maintained by the homeowner, not the association.
Nope, that's not accurate. I flipped through all 60 pages of covenants and bylaws for her HOA, and it clearly says her HOA is responsible for yard maintenance. But then the property management company came up with another excuse.
In this circumstance, from my understanding, she went ahead and planted her own bushes, which means that was not the association bushes. In this situation, once someone goes ahead and makes any alterations, it's their responsibility for the maintenance.
Guess what? That's not accurate either. Perhaps they didn't think we would actually read the fine print, but we did. So while the management company tries to backtrack, the TrustDALE team took charge, and I shared our plan with Mary.
Can I give you some good news?
Yes, sir.
TrustDALE is going to mow your grass today, and we're going to clip your lawn, and we're going to trim your hedges.
Oh my gosh. I cannot believe that. You mean I'm actually going to get my yard done when it hasn't been done since July? That's ridiculous.
I gathered some of my TrustDALE crew to tackle Mary's unwieldy yard, trimming, edging, and mowing, cleaning up Mary's yard because it's the right thing to do. We got her property looking like it should. And I asked the Homeowners Association Management Company to follow up with their claims that when a homeowner makes a change in their yard, that the HOA will no longer be responsible for taking care of the property. Can you send me something in writing with her permission, since she's your client, something that codifies or documents that if you make changes to your landscape, you are solely responsible for its upkeep? I never got a response to that. But the HOA was obviously inspired to follow their own rules and is now doing the right thing by putting Mary's yard back on the schedule. She's set to have all of her maintenance continued.
You're not only fantastic. Oh, you don't know how much I appreciate you.
We're going to take care of you.
And it's so wonderful that you come out. There's so many stories that you do all the time. And you do care about senior citizens.
Remember this, every HOA is required to give you a copy of community rules. As boring as they may be, read through and understand your rights before you sign the contract. Also, be persistent. Lots of management companies actually oversee hundreds of properties at a time, so it may take several polite phone calls and emails to get the customer service you deserve. Or